welcome back to the dark side, the Shoalhaven. So, paranormal witness accounts taken from the Shoalhaven, and this one I'm going to attach a trigger warning because it does mention suicide. Okay, so opt out, get out now if you don't want to continue. Okay, so starting with Belmore Falls. If you've ever been to Belmore Falls, there is an overwhelming, dense negativity that just kind of lingers there. I don't know whether this was always there or it's a result of the suicides that have occurred there, but can't shake it. I would like to do an investigation, like a group investigation sometime in the future, but if you are someone who is prone to suicidal tendencies, perhaps really protect yourself when you go there, spiritually protect yourself. That is so important. Okay, so I have actually had an experience at Belmore Falls where I heard a male voice, and it was quite early in the morning. I think it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, I believe, and I heard a male voice call out Lillian, so in a really sad tone as well. And I'll get to that later. So that was like a clairaudience experience. So what has occurred in that location is the reason behind the dense negativity there. So in 1907, 38-year-old Thomas Ashwell Fawkes lived alone in a shack between the falls and Kangaroo Valley. And he was actually found dead under strange and unusual circumstances. And at the time, they actually thought that it was suspicious, but it did end up being ruled by the coroner as a suicide. So a week before his murder, he actually told several of the townsfolk, and he made a police report, an official police report exists about it, that he believed that there were people tormenting him, harassing him, coming out to his shack, harassing him, and trying to poison his drinking water with arsenic. He really believed this, and there's a possibility that he was suffering from schizophrenia. So this was before schizophrenia was diagnosed. So that's a possibility. There's also a possibility that he really was being harassed. So on Thursday, the 25th of July, 1907, a local resident living nearby actually went to the police and said that he saw smoke. He went to the shack, and the shack had been burnt down. They actually found Thomas with a gunshot wound, so a gunshot wound to the head, and it was eventually ruled that he shot himself in a state of panic, insanity, I think it was, and he knocked over the oil lamp which started the fire, so it was ruled as a suicide. Whether or not it was, who knows? But yeah, it's interesting because he really did believe that he was being tormented, harassed, and they were trying to poison his drinking water. So I don't even know whether he owned the land. I haven't even looked into that. I probably should. Could be a conspiracy. So moving on. Now this is actually in reference to the Lillian. In 1919, a 36-year-old police constable, Oscar MacDonald, committed suicide by jumping off the falls. Now, he was actually on sick leave at the time. He was on 12 months sick leave. He actually worked at Young, but he had come home to where he grew up. And he had a wife named Lillian and 7 children. So he was reported missing on December 21st, and 4 days later, on Christmas Day, his clothes and a suicide note addressed to Lillian were actually found at the top of the falls. Now, his body was found, it surfaced in the watering hole, Belmore watering hole, and he was considered temporarily insane. That's why he was on leave. And it's believed that this depression was actually triggered by, he lost his son Rex 3 years earlier, and he believed that he was somehow responsible for it, that like he could have stopped it from happening. So it's a really tragic place. So very sad. Just be aware of that. Now the next one is Nowra Hill haunting, and a couple of people that I know, like who have worked out at Albatross and that, have said that they've had some strange experiences. And one of them said that they thought they saw a girl, like a teenage girl, but she was tall, like big for her size, big for her age. Now, when I was a teenager, I went to a party at Nowra Hill, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, me, a friend of mine, she was really receptive to spirit, more so than me at the time. We were walking along with my boyfriend at the time, and the friend she was freaking out, and she said there was someone walking along with us, and I did not believe her. Now, she actually mentioned that there was a teenage girl walking along with us with a white hooded dress on, which sounded ridiculous at the time. We all kind of laughed, like even her. We kind of laughed about it, but she really did believe it, and she was freaking out. So I looked into this. Because Nerriga does have a kind of, there's something going on there, and it's nothing to do with Outros. There's something going on in Nerriga. Could be because it's a hill. I don't know. But Emmabourne was 16 years old in January 1866, and she lived with her stepmum and stepfather. Okay, so her parents had passed away, and she ended up with her stepfather, who eventually remarried and became a stepmum. So she was with her step-parents. Now, it was noted that she was quite tall for her age, and she was last seen wearing a dress with a hood, a white dress with a hood. So there you go. On the 3rd of January, her brothers left for work for 2 weeks, and the father was actually supposed to go with them, but he decided at the last minute that he was going to stay behind. Now, Emma had actually been in a confrontation with her stepmum earlier that morning. She'd been accused of letting the cows in the cornfield. So Dad decided to stay at home because Emma was being naughty, and she went missing. Yeah, she went missing. So brothers got back 2 weeks later, and Emma had been missing since day one, which was a bit interesting. And it wasn't until 30 years later, on August 21st, 1896, that evidence of human remains were found 300 yards from the home. Oh, very far away. So Jules Pallard had made the discovery while looking for bones on Mr. Sinclair's property. So Mr. Sinclair had paid for someone to look for bones on his property. Okay, so people had their suspicions. People had their suspicions all along, but nothing could be done. So, yes, Mr. Berridon actually confirmed that the skull was Emma's, and it was actually had traces of an unusual physical characteristics that only Emma had. Now, that's how they were able to determine that it was indeed her skull. Okay, so yeah, her skull had some differences to other human skulls, so it was easy for them to identify it. Yeah, so step-parents. Okay, so the last one, I'm going to end it on an unidentified area phenomenon. No. Okay, so this one is actually Nerriga. So, 30-year-old male witness was camping in Nerriga. He had a friend with him, but the friend didn't want to talk. So, fine. So they were actually camping, and they decided to retire for the night. They were both in separate tents. So the one that I spoke to, he went into his tent, and he was laying there before he could fall asleep. So he was laying there about half an hour. Before he could fall asleep, their tent was flooded in light, just light. So, and it was actually coming from above. So he was like, what the fuck? And he did say he didn't hear a helicopter or anything, so he knew that it wasn't like a helicopter or anything like that. And it didn't seem like a spotlight, like it fully illuminated the whole tent. So he put his head out and looked up where the source of the light was. There was absolutely nothing there, and the light was still there. So it was like a beam sort of coming down. And it wasn't just his tent, it actually covered the entire area, so the other tent as well. And they could not identify the source of the light. And it was about 40 minutes. So it wasn't exact. So guess, an estimate is about 40 minutes. And then as quickly as it started, it just stopped. And that was it. And they did pack up and leave. Because they were like, what the fuck was that? I'd probably do the same under them circumstances. So the fact that there was nothing there, and the reason why I'll say unidentified aerial phenomenon and not unidentified flying object was because they didn't actually see an object. There could have been an object because light refraction. So what that is it creates sort of a cloaking device. And this isn't like airy-fairy or fucking bullshit sci-fi shit. This is real stuff. It's quite easily done. So they reflect it back, and you're seeing something else. You're not seeing what's behind it. That is the easiest way that I can describe it. It's cloaked, shrouded. It's there, but you can't see it. You should let I open your mind. Right. So that's it. That's it. There we go. Peace.